Donald Trump has ordered a pause in intelligence sharing with Ukraine as part of his suspension of military assistance to Kyiv. It's a move that could seriously affect Ukraine's ability to target Russian forces and defend itself. But Mr. Trump has suggested he may be willing to continue talks with Kyiv, and President Zelensky has said that Ukrainian and US teams are working together with what he called forward momentum. President Macron of France has announced he plans to hold a meeting of European army chiefs in Paris next week, saying he wanted to believe the US would stay at Europe's side, but it had to be ready to fend for itself. We'll have more on that in a moment, but first from Washington, here's Sarah Smith.
America is back.
And of course, Donald Trump is back, 5 years since he last spoke to Congress. In this speech, he was able to signal that tensions between him and President Zelensky may be easing and peace talks could soon begin.
Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Russia is, for now, still launching deadly attacks on Ukraine. Assaults that will be much harder to prevent now America's stopped sharing military intelligence, as well as halting the supply of weapons and equipment. The US believes that by harming Ukraine's ability to defend itself, they have forced Mr. Zelensky to talk about peace on Donald Trump's terms. Today, White House officials are already making plans for renewed talks with Ukraine.
Just in the last 24 hours, since the public statement from Zelensky, and then these subsequent conversations, which I'm going to walk inside and continue, I think we're going to see movement in very short order.
They did.
President Trump addressed the controversial trade tariffs he's imposed on Canada, Mexico and China, which many fear may spark a global trade war, saying Americans may have to pay a price, but it would be worth it.
Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
On television, officials have to respond to diplomacy that's being done via social media.
This was posted by the Chinese embassy. Quote, "If war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end." As Secretary of Defense, how do you take that?
Well, we're prepared. Those who long for peace must prepare for war. That's why we're rebuilding our military. That's why we're reestablishing deterrence and the warrior ethos, is because we live in a dangerous world with powerful, ascendant countries with very different ideologies.
Car makers in North America fear the tariffs will punish them. Vehicles and parts frequently go back and forward over the Canadian and Mexican borders. They've been given a 1-month exemption from the 25% levy. After that, the administration says they should move their factories to the US.
God bless America.
President Trump enjoys the enthusiastic backing of his Republican colleagues, even those who used to advocate for free trade and back strong US support for Ukraine. They are now cheering on his approach to peacemaking, even though he appears to be being much tougher on Ukraine than he is on Russia.
Sarah Smith there reporting. Well, as you heard, despite the suspension of US intelligence, Washington and Kyiv have said that both sides are aiming to hold talks to discuss a potential peace plan. Here's James Landau with more on what any agreement might involve.
What are the elements of a peace deal that might be discussed? Well, as we've just been hearing, it's still very, very early days. But a few clues emerged at the Lancaster House talks at the weekend. President Macron suggested a temporary partial truce. This would cover attacks in the air, on the sea and against power plants, but not fighting on the ground in the east. And President Zelensky echoed this in a tweet, saying that a truce could involve a release of prisoners, a ban on missiles and drones, attacks on civilian infrastructure, and only, of course, if Russia would do the same. The idea is that a truce would be a start. It would test Russia's good faith, give Donald Trump an early win, and potentially create space for talks about a more lasting ceasefire. And if that were agreed, then Britain, France, and maybe some others would deploy a reassurance force to Ukraine to deter future Russian aggression, as the French president set out this evening.
Ukraine must not be invaded again by Russia. and we have to prepare for that. We have to support the Ukrainian army, and it may well be that we can do that through the deployment of European forces.
But all this presumes Donald Trump is on board, and he won't agree a deal without getting access to Ukrainian minerals, and he doesn't want the US military to help secure Ukraine's future. And let's not forget the Russians. Vladimir Putin wants Ukraine to be neutral outside NATO and demilitarized. He also wants to keep the territory he's seized and more in these regions here in red, and he doesn't want any European force here in on Ukrainian soil. Now, critics say that what Russia wants, the US can't deliver, and the Ukrainians won't accept.
Nothing much is going to happen in this until the Russians make up their mind whether they want to stick with their pretty maximalist demands or can back down a bit. Unless they can do that, then I think the Trump administration will find it difficult to take this very far forward.
So for all the fast diplomatic movement, agreement between these two may yet be still some way off.